is my team here next, my Green Bay Packers. As we're moving on to them, they went 9-8 last year. Obviously, we lost to the 49ers in the divisional round. And in terms of departures, we let go of running back Aaron Jones. That was a tough one. And then offensive lineman John Runyon Jr., the guard, a couple of tackles, and obviously Yeshua Neiman. Obviously, the big one, though, David Bakhtiari. Yeah, he's been dealing with his knee injury. So, and as of right now, not currently signed. So, it'll be interesting to see if he can get back and if he wants to come back and such. And then on defense, lost inside linebacker Devondre Campbell, and then a trio of safeties in Jonathan Owens, Darnell Savage, and Rudy Ford. And then also let go defensive coordinator Joe Barry as well. And then in terms of additions, brought in running back Josh Jacobs, offensive tackle Andre Dillard, and then on defense, brought in a new DC and Jeff Hafley from college, if I remember correctly, Boston College. And then in terms of free agency, brought in safety Xavier McKinney. And then this was bigger, especially as of today, in the fact that they grabbed kicker Greg Joseph because we cut the kicker we drafted last year, Andrews Carlson. So looks like Greg Joseph is our kicker. And then speaking of the draft, though, last draft we grabbed offensive lineman Jordan Morgan out of Arizona in the first round, and then went defense in the second round with both of our picks. First one being linebacker Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M, and then safety Javon Bullard out of Georgia at pick 58. And then the third round, grabbed running back Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, as well as another linebacker and Tyron Hopper out of Missouri. So with that being said, John, what are your thoughts on this Packers team? A lot of people have increased expectations for them. So do you believe that they can match those?
Ultimately, I think if they are going to match the increased expectations, it's largely going to be coming from internal development. I don't think that the offseason was anything crazy. I like some of the key additions, like a Josh Jacobs, especially, we didn't know this at the time, but A.J. Dillon, unfortunately, is going to be out for the season. So that would have been pretty tragic if all the hopes were riding on him. And now you're in a situation where Marshawn Lloyd which he's also dealing with injuries, being forced into, being the guy immediately on a, already super young team. So I like the veteran addition of Josh Jacobs in terms of just being able to kind of carry that workload. I like the Xavier McKinney addition because I was wondering what y'all were going to do at safety. It felt like in terms of y'all secondary, especially considering how well Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes have worked out, the safety spot. It's a little questionable. You get McKinney, you draft Bullard. Is he slated to start, or because I don't think the other guys really are that notable,
he is
right?
slated, at least on the. I'm not sure if this is official, but on the team depth chart as of August 27th, they have him as a starter over Evan Williams.
Gotcha. Yeah. So ultimately, that's kind of like the notable additions for me. But when it comes to, like I said, meeting the expectations, I'm looking at guys like Jordan Love. I'm looking at pretty much the entire wide receiver room. I'm looking at, your two young tight ends in Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. I'm looking at Josh Myers at center. I'm looking at Zach Tom at right tackle. I'm looking at Quay Walker over at linebacker. Devonta Wyatt down on the defensive line. Like, a lot of young pieces that I think, even Eric Stokes at corner, who I already mentioned has played well, but if these guys continue to develop and can get better than they were last year, that's the main thing that I think is going to propel this team forward because, yeah, like I said, ultimately, I don't think the offseason outside of pretty much the McKinney and Josh Jacobs additions was anything nuts, even in terms of the players lost outside of maybe Bakhtiari, just because of, which it's tough because, he was injured for so long, but just simply the fact that he's been there for so long and kind of been a staple of that offensive line. I don't know in terms of my own personal expectations for the Packers, just because it is so heavily based on internal development. I definitely think their floor, though, is still going to be, what they pretty much were last year, which was competing for the wild card spot late. And their ceiling, once again, depending on how well those guys develop, who knows how high that could go.
Yeah, I think for me, especially on defense, you mentioned Stokes. He's a big key to the puzzle. It's him being healthy, though. That's been his issue, too, is he hasn't been healthy the past couple of years. So if he can just stay on the field, obviously a tandem him and Jair, like you mentioned, is can be. I mean, it could be great, especially compared to all the other talent, like you mentioned, across the defense. One of the rare times where I'm very confident in regards to the talent of my defense, and even I think the production too, because like even though we're potentially going through, we are not potentially, but we are going through a kind of a scheme change. The pieces feet and fit. Excuse me. Rashawn Gary, kind of could be more hands in the dirt because we're going to 4-3 now. And then we'll be interested to see. I think Kenny Clark will be fine. Obviously, a D tackle, and Slayton's pretty solid. And I mean, he's technically above Devontae Wyatt, and Wyatt, in my opinion, has been solid and as well. I'm excited about Lucas Van Ness too because that means he's more on the edge. And I know Preston Smith's above him, but that's just really good to have good depth behind Preston there. And then obviously Enigbari's had a couple of moments as well, so I won't count him out. I can go on. I'd be interested to see the opposite linebacker Quay Walker. As right now, it's Isaiah McDuffie, who was solid, but who knows? He had a solid year last year. Things can go up and down once again with the changing of the schemes, but they did obviously address maybe that concern by bringing in Adrian Cooper, double dipping at linebacker as well, going Hopper later. I'm interested to see where we put Jordan Morgan. It seems like he's going to be a guard, which is fine with me because it seems like that line last year not overperformed, but definitely exceeded expectations, especially since Bakhtiari was out for the whole year, and that was kind of like a hope. But regardless, they did great. And then really the only other two big questions are obviously Jordan Love. I think he just has to really just continue to do what he did last year because, to be fair, it was 1 year, and let's be honest, it was kind of a good stretch at the end of the season. It was a great 2 months per se. So, there may be a little bit of concern there, but I'm confident in him. And obviously, I think the bigger one, though, is Christian Watson. I'm not overly concerned if he's not available, but I just think it would be great to have, obviously great if he's healthy and is able to put together kind of at least, 13, 14 good games and, be a force in this offense. I feel like he could definitely be the consistent big play, deep threat while all these other guys, they're capable of big plays, but they more have to be kind of drawn up or schemed up for the most part. Although, Dobbs had a great year last year as well, and Jane Reed is also capable of explosive plays, and he's going into year 2. So, and on the 2 tight ends too, because we forget too that Musgrave and Kraft both were dinged up throughout last year, but they contributed a good amount, especially in the receiving game as well. But they both had great moments. So, very interested. Hopefully, we can meet the upside demands. I'm actually very excited that we get to play the Eagles first because that's kind of a good barometer. Because even if we're not great schematically that game, we may be able to at least match them in talent, and then who knows. But we'll get to the week 1 picks another time. So, yeah, I'm scared because I don't know if you feel this with Dallas, but where like you actually feel confident in your team, and you're like right before the season, and you're like, wait, maybe I shouldn't be this confident. Like, you know what I mean?
I unfortunately don't feel that at all with the Cowboys.
But like
ever.
Ever. Sorry. Yeah, and like I said, I haven't felt this way really ever with the Packers. Every year I've been like, man, they've got some huge holes here, and here. I didn't like free agency. We did this, but it's a rare one where I can't like specifically point anything out that like I hate.
I definitely have years where I feel that way about the roster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can always point to the coach and be like, don't like that. I can always point to there's just my entire life has been rosters that felt good enough to win. And when it came to the playoffs, they just didn't get it done. So it's just hard for me to ever feel that way, quite honestly.
Yeah. So
not to make it all dark and everything.
No, you're good. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And I did I should have known throwing it to knowing Dallas's history. So anyhow, we'll see how obviously my Packers fare and if they can meet those expectations set by the majority of us fans. So anyway, let's keep on moving down.